conversation, I think, is between Maitreya and Vidura, or I don't remember. Wait, don't remember. But the conversation is between two great souls. Either it's Maitreya and Vidura, or it's Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. Of course, both the conversations are going at the same time, but in this particular section, I don't remember with who are the devotees conversing. So, um, so the conversation is going on, and the devotee who is asking the questions, who is either Vidura or Parikshit Maharaj, asks that, "Hey, dear Gurudev, how can this? How come this uh, Hiranyaksha? How was he born? Like, what is the understanding of this?" So then that's where the story begins of how Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu they were born. Of course, the story then later, this is only Hiranyaksha, and then Hiranyakashipu section is taken up again in the seventh canto, as we know, where the Narsimha Leela happens. And in this way, the story begins of how they were conceived. They were so their parents, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu's parents, Diti and Kashyapa Muni, they united at the wrong time, and because it was the time when all these ghosts and goblins, being led by Lord Shiva, are traveling everywhere. That is why the two souls that got into the womb of Diti were these demons. And then that whole description is given about the how that happened and everything. And then this chapter then talks about how when Diti's womb, when Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were in Diti's womb, there were all ill omens around the world. Like the sunlight, moonlight, what this was dissipated. There was darkness everywhere. And then there was again confusion for the demigods. So the demigods went to Lord Brahma to ask, "Dear Lord Brahma, what happened? Why is this happening?" And then that time, Lord Brahma then starts narrating the story of how Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu ended up coming to the earth. And then last time we saw, there was a description of the spiritual world. And then we also saw that the four Kumaras were traveling in the spiritual world. And then they happened to come. They were not traveling a spiritual world, so to say. They were traveling in the Brahma Jyoti, in the unlimited effulgence light, that spiritual light that emanates from Krishna. So they were traveling in that, and beyond this Brahma Jyoti light, there is the spiritual world. So they happened to reach the entrance of the spiritual world, the gates of the spiritual world. And then that's where we stopped last time. And our focus was more on the description of the spiritual world, how the devotees there are completely selflessly serving the Lord. That is the only thing in their life. There is nothing else. Although they have everything at their disposal, all sorts of enjoyment, millions of times more than what we can find even in the heavenly planets in the material world. They have everything, but yet they are so absorbed in serving Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu, that they don't care for any of these things, right? And now the story continues where these Kumaras are at the door, right? And now we'll see what happens. So we have a shorter section today, just the last 22 verses of the. Um, Actually, what we can do is let's read few of the previous verses also, so we get into the flow. Then after that uh, continue with today's verses. So let's do from verse 27. Okay, let's do from verse 26. Okay, so 26 to 50. So that's 25 verses. We'll have 8, 8, um, 8, 8, 8, and 16, 8, 8, and 9. So who wants to go first? Megha Mataji? Yeah, sure. Just one sec. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. So you can go from 26 to 33.
Thus the great sages Shanshanika, Sanatan, Sanandana and Sanat Kumar upon reaching the above-mentioned Vaikuntha in the spiritual world by dint of their mystic yoga performance, perceived unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After passing through the six entrances of Vaikuntapuri, the Lord's residence, without feeling astonishment at all the decorations, they saw at the seventh gate two shining beings of the same age, armed with maces and adorned with most valuable jewelry, earrings, diamonds, helmets, garments, etc. The two doormen were garlanded with fresh flowers, which attracted intoxicated bees, and which were placed around their necks and between their four blue arms. From their arched eyebrows, discontented nostrils, and reddish eyes, they appeared somewhat agitated. The great sages, headed by Seneca, had opened doors everywhere. They had no idea of ours and theirs. With open minds, they entered the seventh door out of their own will, just as they had passed through the six other doors, which were made of gold and diamonds. The four boy sages, who had nothing to cover their bodies but the atmosphere, looked only 5 years old, even though they were the oldest of all living creatures and had realized the truth of the self. But when the porters, who happened to possess a disposition quite unpalatable to the Lord, saw the sages, they blocked their way with their staffs, despising their glories, although the sages did not deserve such treatment at their hands. Till when, Prabhu? Sorry, I
You
missed
can
that.
go up to 33.
Okay, got it. When the Kumaras, although by far the fittest persons, were thus forbidden entrance by the two chief doorkeepers of Sri Hari, while other divinities looked on, their eyes suddenly turned red because of anger, due to their great eagerness to see their most beloved master Sri Hari, the personality of Godhead. The sages said, "Who are these two persons who have developed such a discordant mentality, even though they are posted in the service of the Lord in the highest position and are expected to have developed the same qualities as the Lord? How are those two persons living in Vaikuntha? Where is the possibility of an enemies coming into the kingdom of God? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no enemy. Who could be envious of him? Probably these two persons are impostors. Therefore, they suspect others to be like themselves. In the Vaikuntha world, there is complete harmony between the residents and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as there is complete harmony within space between the big and the small skies. Why then is there a seed of fear in this field of harmony? These two persons are dressed like inhabitants of Vaikuntha, but where from can their disharmony come into existence?
Thank you, Mataji. Who wants to go next? I'm a little, let me see. Anybody? Soham Prabhu, go ahead, Prabhu. Go till verse 41.
Okay, bro. Uh, from 35, right? Sorry.
No, 34.
Okay, sorry. Therefore, let us consider how these two contaminated persons should be punished. The punishment should be apt, for thus benefit can eventually be bestowed upon them. Since they find duality in the existence of Vaikuntha life, they are contaminated and should be removed from this place to the material world, where the living entities have three kinds of enemies. When the doormen of Vaikuntha Loka, who were certainly devotees of the Lord, found that they were going to be cursed by the Brahmanas, they at once became very much afraid and fell down at the feet of the Brahmanas in great anxiety. For a Brahmana's curse cannot be counteracted by any kind of weapon. After being cursed by the sages, the doorman said, "It is quite apt that you have punished us for neglecting to respect sages like you. But we pray that due to your compassion at our repentance, the illusion of forgetting the Supreme Personality of Godhead will not come upon us as we go progressively downward." At that very moment, the Lord, who is called Padmanabh, because of the lotus grown from his navel, and who is the delight of the righteous, learned about the insult offered by his own servants to the saints. Accompanied by his spouse, the goddess of fortune, he went to the spot on those very feet sought for by recluses and great sages. The sages, headed by Sanaka Rishi, saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who was formerly visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance, had now actually become visible to their eyes. As he came forward, accompanied by his own associates, bearing all paraphernalia such as an umbrella and a chamara, fan, the white bunches of hair moved very gently like two swans, and due to their favorable breeze, the pearls garlanding the umbrella also moved, like drops of nectar falling from the white full moon or ice melting due to a gust of wind. The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. His auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction, and his affectionate smiling and glancing touch the core of the heart. The Lord's beautiful bodily color is blackish, and his broad chest is the resting place of the goddess of fortune, who glorifies the entire spiritual world, the summit of all heavenly planets. Thus, it appeared that the Lord was personally spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world. He was adorned with a girdle that shone brightly on the yellow cloth covering his large hips, and he wore a garland of fresh flowers which was distinguished by humming bees. His lovely wrists were graced with bracelets, and he rested one of his hands on the shoulder of Garuda, his carrier, and twirled a lotus with another hand. His countenance was distinguished by cheeks that enhanced the beauty of his alligator shaped pendants, which outshone lightning. His nose was prominent, and his head was covered with a gem studded crown. A charming necklace hung between his stout arms, and his neck was adorned with the gem known by the name Kaustuba.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone wants to finish off the chapter?
I can go, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead, Mataji. Thank you.
The exquisite beauty of Narayan, being many times magnified by the intelligence of his devotees, was so attractive that it defeated the pride of the goddess of fortune in being the most beautiful. My dear demigods, the Lord who thus manifested himself is worshipable by me, by Lord Shiva, and by all of you. The sages regarded him with unsated eyes and joyous bowed their heads at his lotus feet. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead entered the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. The Lord's beautiful face appeared to them like the inside of a blue lotus, and the Lord's smile appeared to be a blossoming jasmine flower. After seeing the face of the Lord, the sages were fully satisfied, and when they wanted to see him further, they looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus, they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again, and so they finally achieved meditation on the Lord's personal feature. This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga process, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary but factual, as proved by great yogis. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievement, but for others, these achievements are not possible in full perfection. The Kumaras said, "Our dear Lord, you are not manifested to rascals, even though you are seated within the heart of everyone. But as far as we are concerned, we see you face to face, although you are unlimited. The statements we have heard about you from our father Brahma through the years have now been actually realized by your kind appearance. We know that you are the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, who manifests his transcendental form in the uncontaminated mode of pure goodness. This transcendental eternal form of your personality can be understood only by your mercy, through unflinching devotional service, by great sages whose hearts have been purified in the devotional way. Persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are engaged in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and worth hearing. Such persons do not care even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benedictions like the material happiness of the heavenly kingdom. O Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish condition of life, just as long as our hearts and minds are always engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Our words are made beautiful by speaking of your activities, just as tulsi leaves are beautified when offered unto your lotus feet. And as long as our ears are always filled with the chanting of your transcendental qualities. O Lord, we therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your eternal form as the personality of Godhead, which you have so kindly manifested before us. Your supreme eternal form cannot be seen by unfortunate, less intelligent persons, but we are so much satisfied in our mind and vision to see it. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Thank you, dear readers. Let's do prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitantam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम् Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you again, dear readers, for reading this and for everyone for hearing this. So this is a very beautiful section actually, and a very mysterious section also because so many questions can be raised. You know, how can Jay Vijay commit an offense and everything? That question is answered in the next chapter, so I'll not go too much into it. But yeah, so this one verse is actually very beautiful, which Prabhupada quotes quite often. I don't know if quite often, but many times he has quoted. He liked this verse. So if there is anyone here who attended or heard my Bhagavad Shravan class on Sunday, there will be some overlapping things. So forgive me for that. But anyway, I'll recite this verse. तस्यारविन्दनयनस्य पदारविन्द किञ्जल्कमिश्रतुलसी मकरन्दवायुः अन्तर्गतः स्वविवरेण चकार तेषां संक्षोभमक्षरजुषाम् अपि चित्ततन्वोः. So this is the verse that demonstrates, that sort of depicts the transformation that the four Kumaras underwent. The translation goes, when the breeze carrying the aroma of tulasi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the Supreme, of the Personality of Godhead, entered the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. So the form of the Lord, and the form of the Lord is described very nicely here in this chapter. There is another verse that I heard, which I was just so moved by that verse. In one of the classes I was hearing, this is that verse. Madhuram madhuram vapurasya vibhor madhuram madhuram vadanam madhuram madhugandhi mridu smitam etadaho madhuram 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 madhuram. O my Lord, the transcendental body of Krishna is very sweet, and his face is even sweeter than his body. But his soft smile, which has the fragrance of honey, is sweeter still. So this is from Krishna Karanamrit by Bilwa Mangal Thakur. And this is a very beautiful verse that describes how sweet the form of the Lord is, and sweeter than that is his is his face, and even sweeter than his face is his soft smile. So with that, we'll get into today's section. So I'll just recap the story. So the Kumaras actually, with an open mind, they went to see the Lord. So they were actually, now here it is important to note. So the verse that we just read also said that they were Brahman realized, right? So actually, when we say Brahman realized, it was not that they were Brahman realized and they knew nothing of anything beyond Brahman, right? So it is described in one of the purports towards the end, where the Kumaras, they are expressing their humility. They're actually saying that, dear Lord, we had heard about your form from our father Brahma, and now that we are witnessing you personally, we can see that the words of our father are coming true, right? So in the purport, it says that these Kumaras were actually sincere devotees, is what Prabhupada writes. Although they had heard from their father Brahma about the personal feature of the Lord, only the impersonal feature Brahman was revealed to them. But because they were sincerely searching for the Lord, they finally saw his personal feature directly, which corresponded with the description given by their father. Thus, they became fully satisfied. Here, they expressed their gratitude because although they were foolish impersonalists in the beginning, by the grace of the Lord, they could now have the good fortune to see his personal feature. Another significant aspect of this verse is that the sages describe their experience of hearing from their father, Brahma, who was born of the Lord directly. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain the disciplic succession and so on. So, bhakti, we can't attain bhakti unless we have the grace of some devotee. So bhaktya sanjayatya bhaktya. So bhakti only comes through bhakti. And in this case, although the Kumaras, they were actually highly realized souls, they got the opportunity to see the Lord because they had the grace on them of a pure devotee, which is Lord Brahma. So that is what happened. And they were actually sincerely searching, is what Prabhupada writes, right? Krishna says in the Gita, Chaturvida bhajante maam jana sukritino artho jignasur artharthi jnani cha bharatarshava. So the four types of people who approach Krishna, they are artho are, the distressed, jignasu, the curious, artharthi, desire of wealth, and the last one is jnani, the one who is in search of the absolute truth. And in the very next verse, Krishna says, Tesham jnani nityayukta eka bhaktir vishishyate priyo hi jnani notyartham aham sachamamai priyaha. So he's saying that out of these four, my most favorite is the jnani who is searching after the absolute truth. Then, of course, he also says, what is that? Everybody is magnanimous. I forget that verse now, but the very next verse. But even then, the Lord is saying that the one who is in search of the absolute truth, they are the most dear to him. And actually, the Kumaras are also quoted as an example of that fourth category that Krishna mentions in the Gita, right? So, with an open mind, with a very sincere desire to witness the Lord, they are entering the Vaikuntha. So there are 7 doors to Vaikuntha apparently, to the kingdom of the Lord, and then through the 6 doors they go uninterrupted, but at the 7th door they are interrupted by Jay and Vijay, right? And it describes that Jay and Vijay's disposition was quite unpalatable to the Lord. So this is very interesting again that so one might say that hey, but Jay and Vijay were doorkeepers, right? So as a doorkeeper, it's their duty to sort of check who is entering and uh, let them enter only if they're qualified and things of that nature. So maybe they were just doing their duty, but then Prabhupada writes that yes, somebody might raise that argument, but then Jai Vijay should have known that unless one has developed pure devotional service, one cannot really even reach to the door of Vaikuntha. So they apparently mysteriously forgot that understanding that somebody only the one who is thoroughly purified and devotionally disposed purely can come to Vaikuntha. So that way, Jai Vijay commits this offense to the 4 Kumaras. And the 4 Kumaras, it describes that they were small kids. So what happens when you obstruct little children? The children, they throw a tantrum, right? But then these children were not ordinary children, and their tantrum was also not ordinary. Their tantrum was that they cursed Jay and Vijay. So I'm just referring to the notes. So I actually forgot my laptop in office, so I'm using Anuradha's laptop. But anyway, so their disposition was very unpalatable, and they wanted to enter. They were the greatest well-wishers of everyone, it is said in the purports. And they wanted to, the Lord was the greatest well-wisher and friend of everyone, and the Kumaras, they wanted to see him, and that's why they wanted to enter. Now, Prabhupada writes here that, anger is the younger brother of desire. So, this we know that, we have also heard that triangle in Gita, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajoguna Samudbhava, that Kama, Krodha, Tatha, Lobha, Tasmadetam Trayam Tyajet. So, 3 things, Kama, Krodha, and Lobha. So, when desire is satisfied, we want more of it, that is greed. And when desire is not fulfilled, then we become angry. So there is a triangle that is there, right? And then Prabhupada writes that actually there is anger in the liberated state and anger in the conditioned state. So anger in the liberated state is when one becomes angry because there is an obstruction to their service to the Lord. But it's not a selfish kind of anger. It's actually a selfless kind of anger. And anger in the conditioned state is where one is angry because one's personal sense enjoyment is obstructed. So that is what Prabhupada writes in the purport. And I was actually reflecting more about it, going back to that triangle of lust, anger, and greed. When the desire is to serve the Lord, right? There also, and the desire is to serve the Lord, and when we do get that service, there is greed for more and more service, because the result of bhakti is more bhakti, right? So that greed is there, and it is also said that laulyam, intense greed is what is needed for one to go back to Godhead, to reach Krishna ultimately. And then greed, and also even in that stage where one wants to serve the Lord, when an obstruction is put, that time there is anger, which is in a liberated state, it's selfless kind of anger. And then the Kumaras' punishment. So the Kumaras were angry, but let's remember that they were Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na Shochati na Kankshati. Right? So they didn't have any desire, any lamentation, any anxiety. They were self-realized souls. And then their punishment was with an intention to reform Jay and Vijay. They were actually analyzing there. They were angry, sure, but then even in that anger, they were analyzing that this Jay and Vijay, they are demonstrating a disposition which which is very unpalatable to the Lord. And then that's why maybe they are imposters. They should not be here because this is not what our father described us about Vaikunta. That is not how the Vaikuntavasis are. Hmm? So then they wanted to reform Jay and Vijay, and that is why they punished Jay and Vijay. Although there was anger in it, but it was from a good intention of reforming Jay and Vijay. And then that happens, and then now what happens is immediately when that happens, Jay and Vijay they accept their mistake and they humble themselves before the sages. We'll see more about this when we discuss the themes that come out. Oh, and also one thing I forgot to mention, there was Jay Vijay accept their mistake. Yeah, I'm just unable to remember. Sensual activities. Yeah, doorman duty. Okay, anyway, once I remember, I'll tell you. And then the story continues, and now the Lord instantly came to the rescue. Oh, okay, I remembered what that was. So Jay and Vijay were the doorkeepers of Vaikunta, and then Prabhupada writes that in Vaikunta, nobody who is a pure devotee can enter, right? Then one might question what was why were Jay Vijay even there, right? Why were they even guarding the doors of Vaikunta? If it is a fact that nobody who is a pure devotee, uh, uh, nobody except a pure devotee can enter, right? I was thinking about this. So any thoughts on this? Why were Jay Vijay even stationed as guards? What was the need for that, right? Any thoughts on this? Anyway, I'll just I don't have an answer myself, but then in the in one of the purports before I'll show you that purport, which is actually very interesting. I was So in that purport, it describes the spiritual world, right? It says there are these ladies who are dusting the yeah. So here, yeah, this is interesting. These millions and goddesses of Orchid. It is said that here in it is stated here that in the Vaikunta planets, the houses are made of marble. Similarly, in the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the ground on the Vaikunta planets is made of touchstone. Thus, there is no need to sweep the stone in Vaikunta, for there is hardly any dust on it. But still, in order to satisfy the Lord, the ladies there were always engaged in dusting the marble walls. Why? The reason is that they're eager to achieve the grace of the Lord by doing so. So this is the closest I could get to an explanation that, yeah, Vaikuntha, the Lord is all powerful. And as the all powerful Lord, he is quite capable of enforcing the rule that no one other than his pure devotees can enter. But still, uh, to give a service to Jay and Vijay, to his devotees who were maybe they were inclined like that. So he put them as guards. So that is just again the variegatedness of the spiritual world. Uh, that's how I see it. If there are any other thoughts, please raise your hands and or just unmute and say.
I was thinking maybe that's the bhav and so that kind of reciprocation and that job role was created for that reciprocation maybe.
Right, right. Yeah, that is true. And that job role, na, so actually there is another devotee called Vishwak Sen, right? We have heard about Vishwak Sen. So he's a steward of the Lord. And actually when the Lord fights in the material world, he's actually one of the commanders or whatever I had read somewhere. So that is again an interesting point. And even when the Lord Vamandev, he ordered the arrest of Bali Maharaj. That time it is said that the list of devotees, the list of associates of the Lord, are actually mentioned in that section in the 8th canto. So which is very interesting. So so the Lord actually created a job description, as you so rightly mentioned. Yeah, that is a very nice way to look at it, to reciprocate. So now what happens is this exchange is going on. The Kumaras have cursed the Jay and Vijay, and then the Lord understands what is going on, right? And then and Prabhupada writes in the purport that the Lord instantly came. He instantly, hurriedly, he came to the place where this was happening, and Prabhupada writes there that the Lord was fearing that that Jay and Vijay would be vanquished for good, is what Prabhupada writes, and that is why he feared that. So he wanted to stop this whole cursing thing. So that's why he went there instantly, and then that's when the transformation takes place in the Kumaras, as we saw. They smell the breeze that brushed off of the tulsi leaves that was there, that the Lord had adorned, and then that entered their nostrils, and that totally made them pure devotees, bhakti yogis, right? And so that is the thing, right? They had heard about the Lord, but the way I understand it is they had heard about the form of the Lord. They had heard about Bhakti Yoga from Brahma, because Brahma himself is a great devotee. But then they knew that they had the knowledge, but their realization was on the level of Brahman. And in fact, not just Brahman, their realization was a little more than that, because it is said in one of the verses that they had already witnessed the Lord in their hearts, in one of the purports or the verses. And then they were very pleased to see the Lord in their heart present before them, face to face. So they were actually not Brahman realized in a strict sense of it, that, they didn't know anything beyond that. They knew a lot, but then they hadn't realized the highest aspect of Bhagavan. Hmm. And then the Lord came there, and then the transformation happens. And here Prabhupada writes very beautifully that more pleasurable than oneness in the Lord is actually servitorship to the Lord. So that is again another point that is quite emphasized in many of the many of the discussions within the movement, that oneness mein kya hai, das bano. So anyway, so from Soham to Dasoham. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say Dasoham, because all these other Mayavadis, they would say Soham, I am that. But then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, I am the servant, Dasoham. And then now, with the Lord in the center, the Kumaras are transformed and they were humbled. And now they actually start considering their own action to be haughty. So they consider that, oh, we have unnecessarily cursed these innocent beings, Jay and Vijay, like that they start expressing. And then it continues. So actually, the next chapter is very interesting. The next chapter actually is about the conflict resolution skills of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's very interesting to see how he placates both the parties. And but yeah, we'll wait for Sankirtan Acharya Prabhu to cover that. But anyway, now offense, offense has been done. That Jay Vijay have committed an offense to pure, sincere souls like Jay and like the 4 Kumaras, right? So I wanted to, go a little bit into this theme of offense. So in our movement, this theme of offense is sometimes emphasized to such an extent that there is almost like a paranoia that, oh my God, if I do anything, if I say anything, then that will be an offense. So let me just shut my mouth and do what is told to me, right? So that kind of mentality is there, right? So that paranoia is also actually not it's not considered very healthy for our overall progress, right? So what does it really mean to offend someone? This is where we'll try to have a little bit of a discussion, right? What does it mean to offend someone? We talk so much about offenses, lectures. There are so many lectures about, offense to devotees being the Hati Mata Aparad, the mad elephant offense. And even the first offense against the holy name is that we offend a devotee who is engaged in spreading the glories of the Lord. So what does it really mean to offend someone? Let's try to understand this. So anyone has any thoughts here? So let me try to steer the discussion a little, okay? So is saying no to service, is that offense? And this, I actually took this theme for because of my own personal experiences also. Yes, Krishnan Prabhu.
I think you asked the question, what does it mean to offend someone?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And so maybe we start there, and then so to offend someone is um to the material way of looking at it is to cause displeasure
Hmm.
where they are displeased about something,
Right.
and so that's the material way of thinking about it. And then you can also take a spiritual way of thinking about it, which is, to offend someone is to take them away, divert them from Krishna, maybe.
Hmm.
That would be a spiritual way of looking at it.
Right, right. Yeah,
But it
thank
depends
you.
on it. But it depends on what their what the other person's perspective is. If they take material offense, if they feel displeased, then in terms of their body, then that means that they are,
Right,
that means their ego is hurt in some way.
correct. Yeah, these are all very valid points. And when somebody is displeased or it causes a visible displeasure in them, or the other point you mentioned, when you take someone away from Krishna through your whatever words, actions, that is offense. Yeah. Anything else? Any other thoughts, dear devotees? So I'm just looking at the dictionary meaning of offense. So one first is a breach of a law or rule, an act that is illegal or unlawful. Annoyance or resentment brought about by perceived insult to or disregard for oneself or one's standards or principles. The action of attacking someone or something, right? So he's on the offensive, they say, right? That team is on the offensive right now. So in soccer and sports, they have this defensive and offensive, right? So yeah, there are so many meanings to this. So it's a very broad term, offense, and in one way, this whole paranoia that we do anything and that will be an offense is also not really valid, right? So let's get into some specific examples. So is saying no to service an offense? Let's say somebody, so this is something I struggle with, but I've tried to develop it slowly. So saying no to service, right? Somebody reaches out to you, Prabhu, we really need this. Can you do this? And then you say no. Is that offense? Yes, Saraswati.
I think the way you say no would matter here, because I am seeing
Hmm.
offending someone as disrespecting. Like if I just yeah, if I मानो जैसे पहले I'll be like, oh yeah, I might be able to do it, and then suddenly I say no. Like if
Hmm.
if I say no with a valid reason, I think that's fine, and how I say it, or how
Right.
one says no to the service. If you're just calling them names and saying no, then I think it will be an offense.
But
Yeah.
just continuing the discussion, what if just adding to that, what if I don't want to share the
Hmm.
reason? It could be something very personal.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a priority in the family, and I cannot really, I don't want to I don't want to share that priority with
Correct.
this person who's asking, and I might just say, so what if that is the situation? I'm just adding to her question. Maybe you can
Yeah,
take that.
no, that is true. That is true. That's a very valid question. And from my perspective, at least, it would not be an offense. And as Saraswati also mentioned, the way we say it is also this thing important. But yeah, if we don't want to share, then yeah, I mean, a good leader would understand, right? Now, again, there is one important question I want to ask as the last question here. It's about, does it really need multiple, like more than one people to for an offense to occur, right? That is another very important question we need to answer, right? But let's hold on to that. That's a very valid point, Krishnan Prabhu, right? Saying no to service, right? So again, it depends, right? Now, disagreeing on aspects of Krishna consciousness, right? I really, sometimes we have disagreements. No, this is supposed to be done this way, liberals, conservatives, and everything. Is disagreeing on aspects an offense? I mean, I guess the same principle would apply here. How are you doing it? How are you disagreeing? Disagreement can be done in a nice way, right? I remember many years ago, Radhesham Prabhu had told us this example that once they were in a Chowpatty management meeting, and there were many devotees, all senior devotees, like Shamanand Prabhu, Radha Gopinath Prabhu, and everyone. And then everybody they were discussing something, and then everybody was giving their inputs. And then Radhesham Prabhu gave his input at one point, and then Shamanand Prabhu apparently disagreed with that input. And then before he spoke, he said something really nice. He said to Radhesham Prabhu, I, I am against your input. I'm against your suggestion, but I'm not against you. Please understand this. He said this, and then he started, smashing that input or whatever. And that's what Radhesham Prabhu had told us, right? So disagreeing on aspects. And Prabhupada also writes in one letter that so some disciple of his, they found some contradiction between what two acharyas have said. Like Gaudiya acharyas within our sampradaya, something that they had said about some principle or some pastime. There was a contradiction, like total 180-degree contradiction. So then this devotee, they asked Prabhupada, how can this be? And then Prabhupada, it's a very interesting letter in which Prabhupada writes, who said that there should be no disagreements between acharyas? Right. And Hariparshad Prabhu quotes that letter at one place, and I was actually surprised that Prabhupada wrote this. And then what he explains is, as devotees, we are saragrahis. There are disagreements, there are, people differ in their opinions about various things. But then as devotees, we are saragrahi. We take the essence and then we move on. We don't stick to those disagreements and then start bashing each other. Nowadays, even among devotee communities, right? If you want some masala, some spice in Krishna consciousness, although it is, I don't really recommend it, but if you want it, you should go to, some senior devotee writes something about something, oh, Back to Godhead magazine should be completely revamped, different kind of articles should be there and whatnot. And then you see the comments, how devotees are fighting with each other, calling names and everything. So that is not really great, right? So disagreements can happen, but then again, as how you express those disagreements is also important. You can disagree without being disagreeable. Yes. Beautiful, Mataji. Yeah. You want to elaborate on that?
Disagreeable basically means being unpleasant and bad-tempered. And disagreement is just not agreeing on some point of view. So yeah, you can disagree on a point of view without being rude and harsh and bad-tempered. So yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Next. So noticing flaws in others. Now we go a little deeper. So is noticing flaws in others, is it offense? Now there is something else the next question is, it will make it actually even more clear. So, but anyway, noticing flaws in others, is that an offense?
Prabhuji, to be honest, noticing a flaw is a bit more enjoyable than an offense.
Meaning?
As in, uh,
It's
as in like offense begins with the when our heart relishes someone's flaw,
correct.
and when we add a little spice of gossip or judgment to it.
Hmm.
So yeah,
So that is an offense, or is it not an offense?
it's an offense, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
To add to what Mataji said,
I will
oh sorry, बोल बहन
go
बोल.
ahead, go ahead.
नहीं बोल दे तू पहले आई.
Okay. I have a
Wow.
little different opinion here.
Yes, ma. Tell me.
Noticing would not be an offense. See, now if Gaurakumar Prabhuji notices something which
Hmm.
would be a flaw in me
Hmm.
and calls me out personally,
Hmm. Hmm.
he noticed it, and if he wants to help me with whatever the problem is,
Hmm.
he's helping me out, so it is not an offense. But if you notice a flaw and then you are discussing or gossiping about that flaw of this
Hmm.
third person with other people, that would be an offense.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, ma. You're getting into the subtleties of that. That is what I want. Yeah. Thank you so much. So noticing, and your thoughts are very much in line with what Nupur is also saying. The intent matters, right? If we notice a flaw and then take that and it turns into gossip, then that becomes a problem. That is not really recommended. But then, as you said, if somebody is noticing flaws in others as a service, right? The example you mentioned, and Gaurakumar Prabhu is saying, I would never notice a flaw in you. Diya Mataji, yes, that's Gaurakumar Prabhu's nature. He doesn't notice flaws. Yes. But yeah, and Krishnan Prabhu is saying noticing flaws in others is only possible if the flaws exists in us. Yes, that is also something that is quite. Yes, some and Nitya Mataji, precisely, some positions require flaws to be noticed in others. Exactly. Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, it's their seva to notice flaws in others, right? So yeah, notice flaws in their, especially their dependents, and then guide them accordingly. Right? Now, this is where it gets, now we are entering into like the red zones, you can say. Noticing flaws is one thing, but finding flaws in others, now we are entering into the offensive zone, right? So there is a difference between noticing and finding, right? So noticing, sure, we just happen to come across that. And again, it's like noticing flaws, for example, if let's say the well-being of your family is in question, for example, then you sort of have to see what is good for your family, for instance, or what is good for your own well-being, right? If there is something that doesn't work, then you within a community, then you stay away from it, right? You notice that flaw, but and then you decide consciously that, okay, I don't want to get involved, or whatever that is, right? I'm just giving you crude examples that are coming to my mind. So finding flaws in others, right? So finding flaws is a little deeper, because in this we are actually not just we are not just noticing flaws, but then we are trying to look for flaws. We are trying to look for flaws. And Vrajbihari Prabhu, I forgot, this just came to my mind just now. So he says there are 5 kinds of people. So the lowest kind of people are they who just see flaws. Then higher than that is they see the flaws, they see the good, but they choose to focus on the flaws. Then even higher than that is they see the flaws, they see the good, but they choose to focus on the good, right? And then the second level is they just see the good, and then I don't know what the first level is. So, but I have to go back to that and see, right? But anyway, so finding flaws is now going into the red zone, right? We are constantly looking, what is wrong here? What is wrong here? And this person did like that, that person did like that. So then, as many of you mentioned, that turns into gossip also, right? More comments. One of Rajbihari Prabhu's articles also mentions about fault finding could be just a cover of envy sometimes. Yes, yes. So that is what even Maharaj has said, and Nitai Sevini Mataji, someone quoted that when we find flaws in others, actually those flaws exist in us as well. And yeah. Next, right? So now this is like really red. Then the next is being critical. So being critical is very, very, very much in the red. Like we are criticizing someone, we are trying to pull them down, and that is even more serious, right? And I was actually why I'm writing these questions is I wanted to get Shastric examples for these, like saying no to service. Was there any example in the Shastra where somebody said no to a service without offending? Were there any examples where somebody disagreed on certain aspects but still carried on? Noticing, finding flaws in others, right? This Daksha and Lord Shiva example. Daksha is, left and right finding flaws in Lord Shiva, right? And being critical, again, that could be being critical also. So many examples we could think of. What about the term positive criticism though? Yeah, so positive criticism, well, positive criticism is constructive feedback is what you're alluding to. Yeah, constructive feedback is again in that section where in that zone where somebody's service is to improve someone, and for that reason somebody's noticing certain flaws and then helping them. Yeah. Is that what you were thinking of, Nupur?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Just
yes.
to add a thought to this discussion,
Yeah.
If everybody had infinite time, if
Hmm.
then and if they had the time to develop a relationship,
Hmm.
then hopefully they won't be offensive. If there is true, genuine love and affection in a relationship, then it's very difficult to be offensive because both sides will know each other's intent completely.
Hmm.
And is the reason why we tend to offend, is it because we seem to be in a hurry and we don't seem to want to develop the relationships, and we just want to get our work done, and or if our work or what we like is not done, then we get upset? Is that the reason
Yeah.
why we tend to become upset? Just a question, I'm just thinking aloud here as to why we
No.
end up becoming offensive.
No, that's a beautiful point, Prabhu, that you mentioned. If we had infinite time and infinite time to develop a relationship, we would see the other person's perspective, and then, and that is what actually, I guess a conflict resolution expert would do, like try to put, each other in their shoes and see the other person's perspective. But then sometimes this is true. I definitely agree with what you said. But sometimes it's just so, there are just layers and layers of impressions. Then it becomes really difficult to, you know, navigate through those layers and then finally come to a point where one wants to understand the other person's side. Like for example, for me also, there are certain people in my life whom I don't want to understand. I was sharing this one example with devotees yesterday, that my father was on his deathbed, and this one relative comes. He came to visit my father, and he wanted to stay back, but then he came and told my brother and me and my brother that, hey, I want to watch the IPL match, so I'll go home. Let me know what happens. And everybody knew my father was not going to live any longer, right? So now this has created such a strong impression in me that it's very difficult for me to put myself in his shoes and understand. So then it has created a very hard layer, so to say. So then this is just one example I'm giving, and this is just one incident, right? But sometimes there are just so many incidents which create layers and layers and layers of um, resentment, I guess. And then that time it becomes difficult. But yeah, as a, I guess, someone who is a good conflict resolution expert, which I am not, but if I had to think of someone like that, then that's what they would try to address those layers and then finally come to a point where each of the parties could see the other's perspectives and pacify both of them. And that's what the Lord does in the next chapter. He actually pacifies both of them. He pacifies the Kumaras by saying that Brahmanas are very dear to me, and then he pacifies the Jay and Vijay and tells them that this was all ordained by me. Don't worry, you will be engaged with me in the Virya ras, in the rasa of fighting, right? So he does that. So that is the Lord. He is the most expert conflict resolution person. So, but anyway, yeah, thank you for that input. Yeah, that is definitely true. If we were to see the other person's side, then probably it would have been better. There are some more examples that Bharat said no to Ram when he asked to rule. He was asked to rule Ayodhya. Yes, that is one. Yeah. Hiranyakashipu told Prahlad not to worship Lord Vishnu exactly, and it's similarly even Bali Maharaj was told by Shukracharya not to worship, not to give charity to Vaman Dev. And then Megha Mataji is writing, fault finding and criticism also comes from lack of self-love many times. Yeah, do you want to elaborate on that, Megha Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. So I read it in a book. So, and I realized like that happens with me sometimes. So when you are like so critical of yourself, I think, and this is similar to what Krishna and Prabhu mentioned, like when you're so critical to for yourself, and when others are doing the same thing, let's say not getting up early, or like doing something like related, just like doing something that I'm critical of myself, like I notice that in others and I judge them. And then I read in the book, and like that's why self-love, it's such a big thing in therapy, or like yeah, in general in therapy.
Got it, Mataji. Yeah, even I've heard compassion also. Compassion actually begins with self-compassion. Unless we really understand we are honest about who we are, what we are capable of, we can't really be compassionate towards others. So yeah, thank you for that aspect. It begins from ourselves. Anyway, so yeah, this was that. And now the one final quick question, and we'll move on to the next themes. Does offense always involve more than one people? Like does it involve the offender and always somebody who is offended? This is something I wanted to bring up because sometimes like finding flaws in others, right? So we all discussed that finding flaws in others is an offense. It's veering toward an offense. Being critical is veering towards an offense. But what if we are finding flaws, but we are not exactly making it known to that other person that we are finding flaws? What if it's there inside us? Is that an offense? Like, so basically the question is, does offense always involve more than one people? No. Yeah, okay. Diya, you want to?
Yes, I would like to elaborate.
Yeah.
So, like we discussed, right, noticing a flaw. Noticing would be a one-time thing that you saw something, you notice that it is a flaw in so and so devotee.
Yeah.
But if I keep thinking about the flaw, okay, it could be anything, which would just make me think about it, or I would constantly keep thinking that, oh, this is a flaw in this person, or this is wrong, they should do this, or whatever they are doing is wrong, this is wrong. So that would be an offense, that I am thinking about it and calling it wrong or judging them, even when they are not right in front of me, or even if I'm not discussing it with someone.
Correct.
So I think it's an offense, and yes, it may not involve more than one person.
Correct. Yeah, very true, Ma. Thank you. Lekha Mataji says we might have that thought. We can choose to ignore or speculate as to why I thought of them that way. Then it might be fine. But if we act upon it, it might become an offense if our reasons were wrong. Yeah, sure. Yes. That is also one way. So if you look at it, follow-up question on what Diya said, what if it doesn't come into action and the person keeps fermenting on it? Yeah, that is a good question. But like my take on that is if we keep fermenting on it, if we keep constantly thinking of that, then I think it will come out in some way or the other. So it may not come out in 10 years, but in the 11th year it will come out. And another thing from Krishna's perspective, actually, an offense does involve more than one person always, from Krishna's perspective, and that one other person is Krishna actually. Because when now this example of somebody is ruminating constantly on the flaws of someone else, yes, maybe the person about whose flaws are being thought about, they may not know, but Krishna in the heart, he knows as Paramatma what is happening. So that is displeasing to Krishna. So in that sense, from a very universal Krishna perspective, he is always there. He's always involved, and certain things he likes, certain things he dislikes. Read it somewhere, dislike becomes hate eventually. Therefore, try to like people. Yeah. Well, yeah. Mm, Okay. Yeah, that's a good point, valid point as well. So one way, so a very beautiful purport. I'll just go to that purport, and we just have 8 minutes, but I'll quickly go to that purport. And Vaikuntha. So my God, there are 97 hits to Vaikuntha. Of course, the chapter is titled Description of the Kingdom of God. Of course, there will be 97 hits for the word Vaikuntha. What am I thinking about? Anyway, uh, so in one place, Prabhupada writes that if we develop the consciousness of the Vaikuntha Vasis in the material world, this material world will also become like Vaikuntha. He writes, which was very beautiful when I read it. Kumara's witness, Lord instantly came to the rescue. Reason why. Yeah, if the principles, this is purport 3:15:33. 33. Okay. Yeah. In the spiritual world, this religious principle of Krishna consciousness is maintained in harmony, and therefore that world is called Vaikuntha. If the same principles can be adopted here wholly or partially, then it is also Vaikuntha. So it is with any society such as ISKCON, if the members of the ISKCON, putting faith in Krishna as the center, live in harmony according to the order and principles of Bhagavad Gita, then they are living in Vaikuntha, not this material world. It's a very beautiful purport. And one of the lectures I was hearing, that devotee quoted this Varam Vrinidvam Bhadram Vo, Nunam me Yuyam me Nripanandanaha, Sauhardena Pritak Dharma, Tushtoham Saurudena Vaha. 4.30.8. This is the Prachetas. Prachetas performed austerity. The Lord appeared to them, but the Lord was not pleased by their austerity per se. He was pleased by their cooperation. Supreme Personality of God, my dear sons of King, I'm very much pleased by the friendly relationships among you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I'm so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask for a benediction. So, but anyway, harmony or disharmony is realized because of the law of a particular place. Religion is the law and order of the Supreme Lord. And basically, here it is being said that when one is in harmony with the will of the Lord, then that place becomes transformed. So, harmony with the will of the Lord is we put the Lord in the center, and we see in any person, we might notice hundreds of faults in them, but they have one great quality. That great quality is that they are the parts and parcels of Krishna. And if they are a devotee, even better, they are trying to reconnect with Krishna. That is a great quality. So if we can look at that as well, then there can be much more harmony, and we can move closer to the Vaikuntha consciousness. Anyway, we'll just quickly do the rest of these. So intuition and instruction, right? In our spiritual life, there is intuition. We do certain things because we have intuition, and then we do certain things that, because we are instructed to do so by our superiors, by our spiritual master, and so on, right? So one extreme is, well, okay, I'll not go into the extreme, but which one is more important according to you, intuition or instruction? So Lekha Mataji is saying about the fault finding. So sometimes finding flaws acts as a shield as well. We found that flaw for a reason. If we consult our findings with GSS, who is GSS? Guru Sadhu Shastra, then deem it valid. We can stay away from their association also. Yeah. Yes. So Krishnan Prabhu is saying instruction until intuition develops. Yes. Thank you. That is what Prabhupada also says. Again, intuition is not to be completely suppressed. That is not the idea. The idea is intuition is to be subordinated to whatever extent we can to the instruction. And that's what Nupur also is writing here. Thank you for that. So this is what Prabhupada writes. A person in full Krishna consciousness acts by the dictation of Krishna. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, dictation is received through the transparent medium of the spiritual master. When one is sufficiently trained and acts in submissive faith and love for Krishna under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, the dovetailing process becomes more firm and accurate. This stage of devotional service by the devotee in Krishna consciousness is the most perfect stage of the yoga system. At this stage, Krishna or the super soul dictates from within, while from without, the devotee is helped by the spiritual master, who is the bona fide representative of Krishna. So yeah, intuition and instruction both are important. And one important point to note here is when instruction goes against intuition, sometimes when instruction goes against, our moral notions, moral and ethical notions, then definitely that is something that we need to escalate, or we need more clarification on, or we might dig deeper into that. How can this happen? But usually instruction and intuition, they go hand in hand. Instruction can be prominent initially in the sadhaka stages of bhakti, but then as we practice for years and years together, intuition starts developing. So thank you so much for your inputs, dear devotees. The next thing, so the most valuable thing for devotees, right? So what happens is when Jai Vijay are cursed and they understand the gravity of the situation, they actually don't retaliate. They accept their mistake and they pray. They pray for something really important. So, but anyway, what do you guys think is the most valuable thing for devotees, or is supposed to be the most valuable thing for us? Something like we can tolerate anything else, but that thing we wouldn't be able to tolerate. That situation we wouldn't be able to tolerate. What would be that situation? Vaishnava Aprad, sure. Yeah, okay. One of the things. Okay, anyway, without further ado. So this is what comes in the purport. To a devotee, any heavy punishment is tolerable, but the one which affects forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. But the one which affects the forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. So we say, right, never always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So that is what that is what Jay and Vijay are also fearing, that okay, we accept our mistake, dear Kumaras, you are great devotees, but please don't put us in a situation in which we forget the Lord. So that is what that is. So forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord is what is the most intolerable thing for a devotee. And of course, the lesson for us here is that in case of Jai Vijay, the situation was given to them by the Kumaras, right? But in our case, we create our own situations because of the choices we make. So then the lesson for us is, as far as possible, we can try to make those kind of choices that don't affect the forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. So just some inputs here. The last thing, gauging our spiritual transformation. So this is something, again, we might have heard about this. So we say that humility is important for spiritual life. So yes, humility is important, and humility gets us an access to the door, right? And then through that humility, again, the spiritual transformation happens, right? Now, how do we gauge spiritual transformation? So a way to gauge spiritual transformation is actually, again, humility. And why I'm saying this is because humility actually just increases as we get more and more spiritually transformed. And in one of the verses in towards the end, it says body and mind, right? So the Kumaras, they dedicated their body and mind. I want to just go back to that. Mind. Yeah. When the breeze carrying the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord entered the nostrils of they experienced a change both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. So this transformation, when it happens, it's a transformation, it's a paradigm shift, it's a turning point in our consciousness. A turning point in the way we think, a turning point in the way we analyze this world, a turning point in the way we deal with others, what we think, everything. It's a transformation, and that transformation is actually gauged with humility, whether we are really so. Maharaj often says this, that when we know more about Krishna, we know how great he is, and the more we know how great he is, the more we'll understand how insignificant we are, and that creates a humility that enhances the humility in us. But that humility actually, the genuine form of that humility actually gives us more enthusiasm to serve. So that is how we can, one of the ways to gauge spiritual transformation. So anyway, this is all I had. I hope the discussions were uplifting. Me personally, they were. So thank you, dear devotees, for your inputs. If there are any final thoughts, corrections, questions. Yes, getting separated from devotees. Yes, that is so association of devotees is something that many great personalities have prayed in the Bhagavatam. Parikshit Maharaj prays for it. Sudama prays for it. Like Sudama, not Sudama, the Brahmana, but I think Sudama, the cloth seller, when he gives cloth to Krishna and Balaram when they enter Mathura. So Krishna and Balaram are pleased, and they ask him, "What do you want? Tell us, we'll give you any benediction." And and Sudama says that, I want three things, and one of those three things is actually the association of the devotees. And Parikshit Maharaj also says that, he understands that he's going to die, and he's praying to the Lord that what is that verse? I again forgot that verse. But anyway, this is it. And thank you, dear devotees. Thank you, Gaur Kumar Prabhu, for your kind words. And yeah, if there are no other thoughts or questions or corrections, we will end here and meet next month. No, not next month, sorry. Next week. Thank you, Nupur. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am glad that it was useful. Yeah. Okay, dear devotees. Thank you, Thank you, Nitya Mataji. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। थैंक यू सो मच प्रभु।